you see the database right now, status is available, and now if I expand that, let's say if I just click on this RDS Bootcamp database instance, then another window will come up, and this window will show a whole lot of things. Now it's time to discuss some of the use cases. Okay, so production use cases, issues that I faced recently or in my past. So number one, production use cases related to parameter group. As I said that when I created the databases, I said that parameter group is very important, one of the components. If you go to parameter groups, you see there's a parameter by default, which is MySQL 8.0. Okay, if you click on the parameter, there are a lot of MySQL level parameter, because as I said in RDS, you really don't have any operating system level control. Okay, you will only have the database level control. You cannot have any access to, you cannot access operating system, right? But now if you want to change any parameter related to your databases, okay, then how can you do that? Because your database developer, let's say, or your application developer, or maybe you as a database, you are as a database, you need to change or you need to modify some of the database level parameters. So that is something here, this parameter groups all about, like you can change, modify certain parameter group metrics from there. And very, very important that if you don't know, or if you're not confident about this option, then don't change that. Okay, the first, production use cases. So recently I got a customer call, and they are saying that their storage is running out all of a sudden, and very frequently it is happening. Okay, second use case, another customer, they are saying that for last 3 to 4 days their memory, their free memory problem, so they don't have any free memory. Okay, they are getting a lot of errors in memory, there's no memory available or something like that. Okay, so now let's discuss about these two use cases. First use cases is definitely a storage level issue, and storage level issue can happen for many reasons. Okay, first and foremost reason is, very common reason is number of temporary tables. Okay, let's say you have certain storage, let's say you have got a 500 GB or 1 TB storage you define, right? Okay, so in that case, even if you have a sufficient storage, let's say your database size is 50 GB, that's the expectation you have for the database, right? But still your every single day you can see that your every day your storage size is getting consumed, and there are a lot of storage contention issue, storage level issue. Then bin lock can be one of the candidates which will consume a lot of storages. Okay, so if you type bin lock, you can see there are different parameters of bin lock cache size, bin lock checksum, and there's a lot of bin lock even the flash retention. So if you don't need bin lock, so you cannot avoid bin lock for MySQL. Okay, by the way, you cannot avoid bin lock, because bin lock is a kind of lock which is a kind of redo locks in the database. If you know redo locks for Oracle, for SQL Server is a transactional lock files, right? The same way in MySQL is a bin lock. So bin lock you cannot off. Okay, if you are enabling automatic backup. So if you have set automatic backup in MySQL, then you cannot turn off bin lock. Or if you have the multi-AZ setup, you cannot turn off bin lock. But what you can do, that you can set or change or modify those values which will restrict to rows, further your bin lock. Let's say bin lock cache size, or a bin lock, you can define also bin lock, there's another flash. Okay, so If you don't know, as I said, or if you are not confident about, like, you can see the maximum bin log size, which is 30. So you can reduce the bin log size as well. So let's say I don't need that much of bin log size, which is by default. And I want to restrict the bin log size is not more than X amount. So from here, you can actually change the bin log value. So all you have to do that, go to edit parameters, and you have to change something like that. Okay, even the bin log size, I think here, not change, hold on. So let's say bin log cache size, you can restrict. So here you can see there's an option called dynamic option. Okay, there are two options, dynamic and static. So whenever you can see dynamic, that means if you change certain values, then you don't need to restart your database engine. Okay, so it will get applied immediately. So let's say for here, I would like to change some modify this option, and if I just save changes, okay, what is saying, okay, let's say 4096, save changes, cannot default. Okay, that's the thing. So you can see that I cannot modify any default parameter group. Okay, but if you would like to do, or if you would like to change this parameter group, what you can do, that you need to create a new parameter group. Okay, let me go to parameter group and create parameter group. And now you can change, because you cannot change default parameter group. So let's say this is MySQL 8.0 and my name is RDS Bootcamp, and descriptions also maybe something like that, and create. So this is my parameter group. Now you can change that parameter group. So if I go to parameter group, I just select this parameter group, and now let's see if I go and edit 4096 and save changes. Now I can change that. Okay, and you can see since the dynamic, that particular parameter group changes immediately will get applied on that particular database. But there's another use case. I have seen that customer has changed parameter groups. Okay, different parameter group modifications they have done, but still they complain that, okay, after getting changes, even the same behavior from RDS. Why so? Because many customer, they forgot to add that parameter group to your actual database engine. So I've just created a parameter group. It doesn't mean that I have added my parameter group to my actual database engine. I've just created and changed, but I have not added this parameter group to my database. So first, as a database consultant or solutions architect or database engineer, DevOps engineer, you need to first see that whether whatever the changes you have made in that parameter group, that parameter group which is added to particular database or not. Okay, so in our case, database is RDS Bootcamp. If I go to RDS Bootcamp and go to modify, I'll see that the same old default parameter group was added, not the new one. If I scroll down further, go down to extreme, you can see that is default. So I need to change the parameter group. You can see that. And if I go and continue, it will be asking that, okay, when would you like to apply these modifications, right now or in a schedule, on a particular schedule maintenance window? I have a question for you now. Why do you think that these two options are given from AWS? Why cannot apply immediately? Because I said that this dynamic parameter group can be added and applied immediately, and there's no downtime is required also. But why do you think, which situation and when you have to choose this maintenance window? And because there's another production use cases, that's why I'm asking this question. And I saw that many customers, they face problem for that. Okay, I'll answer. So that particular options, it is there if you'd like to change any static parameter group, not a dynamic. Let's say you have made some of the static parameter group, and you know the static parameter group, if you want to apply static parameter group, your database server must be restarted. Otherwise, that parameter group will not get applied. Okay. So if you choose maintenance window, because your company, they don't give many downtimes for you, right? Your management will ask a whole lot of 1,000 questions that, okay, why you have so many downtimes? You are saying that you have changed parameter group, one downtime, and again maintenance window downtime, XY. So why so? So many customer, their database team, what they do, they chose that particular downtime, including the maintenance window, because maintenance window, anyways, you need downtime that Amazon will do for the maintenance purpose. But at the same time, if you change the static parameter group and absorb the same downtime within the maintenance group, then your maintenance downtime will be less. I'm not sure whether you got my point or not, but that is something by which you can reduce the overall downtime in a strategic manner. Okay, that is something, a real production use case I'm sharing with you guys. So that is something that whenever you change any static parameter group, try to choose the next maintenance window so that your overall maintenance window, your overall downtime will be less. But for our case, it is a apply immediately. So now finally my parameter group has got applied in my databases. So this is a problem for use case one, where the customer was facing some kind of issue in the storage. So now they have fixed the buffer size and all. Now their problem is fixed. Second use case, I said another use case, memory, freeable memory. It is just happened, it's still continue. I mean, I'm working on that actually. It's a live customers, but I cannot show customer thing. But what I can share, I think I have their some of the parameter group settings. Let me check. Freeable memory. Okay. Okay, so I don't have that. So the freeable memory problem the customer was facing, it is because of some of the configuration. So customer was using a T3 series for their productions, which is not good, right? T3 is not recommended for any productions database. Maybe their database is very slow, very small, and not that very heavy databases, but still. But anyways, customer, they are facing this kind of problem, like freeable memory issue. So overall memory was very less. So they came to us, came to me rather, and then they need some solutions. So immediately the solutions that we proposed, which is the buffer cache size less. Okay, again, these are all database term, but if you know that, then okay. So buffer cache is a database component for any database in the world right now. So it keeps certain portion of your frequent query into a memory. Okay, so that means the recent query can be fetched from the buffer cache. Okay, that's a database component. Every database, they have their own buffer cache, MySQL, MS SQL, PostgreSQL. So their buffer cache for T3 was very higher. Okay, so if I go to Google and just type AWS RDS freeable memory issue, freeable memory for MySQL, and if I go to this option here, and if I navigate, so there are a lot of things, so I will not spend time. So these options, I told them to do that. So the parameter group name is InnoDB buffer pool size. By default is always 3/4 for MySQL, and you can reduce further to 5.8. So exactly I have done and proposed 5.8, and their problem has gone, but this another problem has come up that I am working on that. But that's the thing, like, if you see this kind of problem, then there's a AWS documentation first to refer, and this InnoDB buffer pool size, if I go and choose that database option, and if I go to parameter groups and just search by name, probably this class is boring, because whatever I'm discussing is typically 300 level. If you're not database guy, you lose interest. Many people actually left, but that's fine. I mean, it would be a precious session for you probably in future. So in order to buffer pool size, you can see that is the default parameter values, which is 3 by 4, and again it is a dynamic nature. So what we have suggested that as per AWS documentation 5.8, you can reduce that so that your viewable memory problem will be less, okay, or will be over. So they have just changed this edit parameter, and here 5.8, and again the same process, like save changes and apply to the databases, okay, and the problem has been gone. So how did you determine that when their viewable memory problem? How did you notice that they are viewable memory issue? Simple, because if you go to database and in the monitoring section, you see there's a monitoring under CloudWatch. The CloudWatch is a monitoring tool which captures all of these things, and it just type free memory. And this freeable memory for their use case was very, very less. So from there, we noticed that there's a problem, and then there's a fixation we suggested, and now problem has been resolved, but there's some other problem has come up. So other problem is, now you see, if you read between the lines, you see that if you go by this low number of this buffer cache, then there's another problem that you might need to increase the instance size as well, because you will face some of the RAM issue as well. So since they are using T3 for productions, so T3 is not recommended. So what we suggested that you have to increase your total instance size from T3 to at least some of the T3 or M5 or R5 series, then probably their problem will be fixed. Now question for you, apart from that, what do you think that if they don't agree for the instance size enhancement for their cost, and again to for the same problem fixation, so what are the second options you have to suggest them for that particular issue? I mean, so let's say they are not okay for the instance size upgradations for their cost issue or budgetary constraints. Okay, so the answer is,
think about read write. Can we think about read write speed consideration so that it can be faster, other way around?
okay, so you're saying that read write. So basically, you're suggesting that if I change the EBS volume type, or maybe something like that, you were saying, let's say if I go to database and if I select and modify that, and if I go down and see here, we can change something like you go to GP2 and you can maybe a little bit more. Let's say if I increase storage, and you can see even for him.
Because that some part of the storage is considered as cache. So right. If I increase that, maybe that, and another was the GP2, the speed. So right. Maybe that can help other way.
I can take this answer. Yes, that can be a reason that yes, I can choose the GP3 and then I get the provision IOPS, so that I can put a little bit more IOPS maybe, or something like that. So that would be another way. Yes. Okay. Another way is, last way out is, if they don't even want to do that for the storage, then you should ask them to tune their query. Because sometimes what happened that if their query is expensive and something bad query, it will consume a whole lot of CPU, RAM, IOPS. Then probably they can retune their query and store procedure for further improvement. And this is something you can suggest from Performance Insight. So Performance Insight is another tool by which you can actually see that option. Like, I have not enabled Performance Insight for these databases, but I'll show you this Performance Insight, by which you can see the different expensive query weight types, what are the SQL queries will consume a whole lot of IOPS, CPU, or memory. And also DevOps Guru for RDS has recently launched that, by which you can actually see So this DevOps Guru is a machine learning service that it will advise you that what are the SQL queries further improved or poorly performing SQL queries. So that's some kind of DevOps Guru integration you can do. I'll not get into that right now, but answer these are all possible reasons that if your customer is facing some of the performance issue, then it is not recommended to just go and say, okay, from instance A to instance B, and your problem will be fixed. Okay, because we all know, if you know database always a resource hungry applications. If you give them 64 GB RAM, or tomorrow if you give them 128 GB RAM, or next day if you give maybe better RAM or CPU, it will keep on consuming all of the resources if you don't define a threshold or parameter or limit at the application or the database level. Okay. So again, use case number 3. Recently, we have seen another problem, which is something like that, their performance issue for RDS, and you can see there's a graph by which we have seen that their IOPS and write latency are hugely impacted. Okay, so they are using some kind of R6G 4x large RDS instances, but still they are complaining that whenever they are going to insert 1 million of data, okay, their database performance is very, very bad. Okay, so we deep dive the situation and see every 1 hour this kind of large inserts happening. So there's a customer from a smart meter utility section. So what happened, the smart meter, there are 3.5 lakh smart meter there, and all of the smart meter data is at a one shot they are trying to put into database. So from the database perspective, we recommended that this is not a right approach. What you have to do, that you have to segregate the entire insert into different batches, right? That means batch updates would be beneficial for you. So let's say 50,000 for one batch, another 50,000 insert in another batch. So you hear me okay? It's saying that your internet is not stable.
Yeah, just got
Okay, just got
silent for 5, 6, 10 seconds. Yeah. So batch size is a good solution. Another is if the transactions are not locked, maybe that can make it faster.
Absolutely. So the problem is, then once we suggested that their database and application team, they denied this approach. They are saying, okay, we need to change our application code and we don't have much time. You see this kind of tussle in real world all of the time. So if you are the database guy, if you want to, let's say, if you suggest something for code level changes or some kind of modification, their store proc or query, so their application team, they say, no, that's your infrastructure level issue, or we don't have any time to retune our things and all. You have to deal with the infrastructure level. So that's some kind of tragedy happens. So the same tragedy happens with us. So since they didn't agree for the batch updation insert process, so then we saw their write IOPS and write latency were super high. So then what we suggested, that we suggested to increase the IOPS, exactly Shatrada you said, for this use case, it reminds me. So we told them, okay, you have to increase the IOPS, and since this customer using Aurora, that we'll discuss in second day, Aurora, there's a new service release which is called IO optimized. Probably you've heard that name. So these IO optimized options, it would be a fantastic approach sometime if your customers are huge IOPS, okay? Because Aurora has two options. One is IO standard, one is IO optimized. And IO standard has a certain limitations, okay? But if you choose IO optimized, then it will give almost unlimited time kind of IOPS, and so they have changed IO standard to IOPS, and then their problem has been fixed. So that is something like, guys, whenever you get this kind of issue, these 3-4 use cases today we have just discussed, so real issue, and you need to deal with them. So the thing is that maybe RDS gives you a lot of things, lot of options, lot of function service, but still your database knowledge will remain there. You have to apply your databases, and you have to apply your previous knowledges as well. Yes, RDS, there are a lot of other features like performance insight, NS monitoring, but sometime what you need to do that, you need to really deep dive the situation, deep dive the problem, and then finally you have to provide the right solutions. Questions?
Dada, it's Danish here. I would like to add one more input on this, especially on this IOPS and throughput. So, and that is a recently use case which we have faced. So, what is happening over there? Even though on the disk level, I provided 1000 IOPS, sorry, 1000 Mbps of throughputs, but on the disk side, it is getting limited to only up to 700 Mbps. I am not getting more than that. And the reason is, even though we can define the throughput 1000 Mbps on the EBS, but the instance should also support that.
Right.
So instance type which we have selected, it can support only up to 700 Mbps, but we have provision 1000, and that's why we are not getting the required throughput. So we need to check the instance type and its limitation as well when we are provisioning these kind of stuff on the RDS side.
Absolutely, it's a really a very good example. Thanks, Danish, for bringing it up. So yes, I mean, sometimes, as I said, if you change the parameter level things, and in AWS, what happened that this instance comes with their own defined, pros and cons, right? The limitations. So if you use T3 and you are expecting that your IOPS will be very better, okay, even you have changed something in the parameter group, probably it will not get any value addition there, because your instance does have the certain limitation. So anyways, you have to increase or upgrade your instance to enjoy that parameters. That is really important again, because even for RDS, even for Aurora, we'll discuss Aurora maybe second day. You will see that even in Aurora, you cannot choose the IOPS. You cannot, I mean, you cannot choose the different database options. Everything comes along with the Aurora instance itself, right? So let's say if you want to have local NVMe storage for large process, and let's say if you would like to have a better storage, let's say you need to have some kind of 2 TB storage. So in Aurora, you won't get those options. Everything comes along with your instance family. Anyways, we'll park that topic maybe for second day. So now let me check if I have other things related to parameter group.
Yeah, one more thing related to parameter group is, if we talk about specifically for the Microsoft SQL, right? So there is an option called max memory.
Correct.
And that is really critical, because that will define how much of memory space you are allocating for your SQL. Because SQL is having tendency that it will try to keep maximum memory as possible. So we need to restrict it. Otherwise, what will happen? It can try to it will be resultant in the malfunction of the OS, and that can result into the your server got hanged. So we should limit at least it. So now in the current practice, we will limit it around 85%. So 85%, only up to 85% SQL Server can accommodate that out of total memory. 15% we have reserved for the rest.
For the system. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. So as I said, right, again, it is very important thing. As much as resources you provide to database, so database will keep on consuming all of the database unless and until you define a certain threshold parameter, right? There's a perfect use case that Danish tried to explain, that if you don't define this maximum allocated memory, okay, or some kind of limitations, then it will keep on consuming, and you will deal with, you'll end up with the same problem, like no resources at all, right? So this is some of the important discussion on parameter group. And parameter group, there are a lot of discussion in the parameter group. Probably we'll discuss more on that in our subsequent lectures. But there's another interesting story for proxies, the use cases. So again, very recently there's a very big enterprise based out Kolkata only. They are they are facing some problem. So the problem is there's an auction company, and on a particular day their database team realized that their entire application is down for 10 minutes, or not 10 minutes, even later, lesser than that, 7 to 10 minutes rather, okay, let's say. And they realized that during that time there's a huge spikes there, huge spikes in terms of connections. Okay, so number of connections were very high, and then database cannot take that much of connections. The additional connections dropped out, and then the entire database choked. Their CPU resources got very high, and then there's a lot of issue, and the application finally threw the error. So they needed a solution for that. So what we found, that there are a couple of options. The first, they are again in the parameter group, there's an option called maximum connections, right? So you have to define the maximum connections for the database engine. So different database has their different parameter related to maximum connections. So if I just search maximum connections or maximum active connections, something like that. In the connections. So somewhere is the maximum connections you can see, that is again it is by default defined, but you need to so for their first you have to see that they what's their maximum connections, and you need to tune and change according to their need. And also proxies would be which would be beneficial in terms of to manage the sessions. So you can create the proxies, a kind of connections pooling, right? So there are different options for MySQL, PostgreSQL, even the SQL Server, and you have to define the connections pooling, and that even this option is very important, like connections pool maximum connections. So sometime I see that even though 100% is not a right approach for that, if you choose 100%, then the enter 100% maximum connections will get established. But here probably you can define some of the right percentage for the connection pool. You can see that, for example, if you have set up maximum connections 5,000, specify 50% allows your proxy to create up the 2,500 connection for the database. So don't define 100% all the time. Okay, maybe 75% or maybe 60% or maybe 80%. So that would be that how you can set it up, the connections pooling or create proxy. So again, you need to be very careful that when you need a proxy, maybe you don't need proxy sometime because your database doesn't have that much of active connections and all stuff. But if your database or if your customer, they have a lot of connections, then the proxy is a good candidate for that. Okay. So this is something. So I have a couple of use cases around proxy. So number one is that the auction company, that they are now using proxies because their problem was maximum connections limit and all stuff. So they changed their parameter group, and also they have introduced a proxy in their architecture, and that now their problem has been fixed. Another problem. So what about the it randomly comes to my mind. So another thing is that customers using Aurora PostgreSQL, and they want to take a dump of that Aurora PostgreSQL. It is nothing related to proxy, by the way. So it is a generic discussion. So now they are facing that, like they cannot take pg dump command. So whenever they are taking a pg dump, they are getting some errors. Okay, so they are getting some of the pg dump cannot be done and something like that. And then for the they took so they are using this pg admin, and from the pg admin they connected their PostgreSQL databases, but pg dump command is not getting succeeded. So always remember that pg dump command cannot establish if your database size is more than 100 GB. So there's a exact situation happened for that customer. The customer had the 120 GB databases, and in AWS RDS, if your database size is more than 100 GB, you cannot commit PG dump. You should follow some other mechanism like DMS or or something like the native applications. I'll not get into that. Otherwise, it is just randomly comes to my mind. That's what I'm saying. But I think it's 7:27. Whole lot of discussion happened. It is just starting. So we have another 2 days. I will share a broadcast the next day and time for advanced level use cases discussion again, and we'll discuss more about the Aurora MS SQL deployment, and also some of the other features and functions related to RDS like multi. Recently, you can see there's an option called multi AZDB cluster deployment. So some of the use case around that, what are the pros and cons of this multi AZDB cluster deployment, and there's a whole lot of stuff for that. So any questions, any suggestions, any confusions, please feel free to share. Do you think that this kind of session helpful to add more value addition?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
definitely,
very,
Gaurav,
very
definitely.
useful. Yeah. And this
Yeah.
specifically the real life scenario of the problems.
Yeah, the situation is, see, nobody, even if you are planning for interview preparation or if you are planning to join a new company or something, nobody will bother. Nobody, if you know Amazon RDS, or you know XYZ, people they would love to hear from you, like what are the use cases you so far you dealt with, and what are the solution you provided, or maybe you face some of the questions from them for this kind of questions, and then you have to answer, right? Because without productions use cases, knowing AWS is absolutely okay, but ultimately the entire thing is you need to know how things work in the productions environment. Okay, that is the whole objective the entire sessions. Thanks for joining, and I'm really looking forward to have the subsequent sessions, and second or third day I'll share. All right, others, you are saying something? You just unmute yourself.
No. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the session.
Thank you.
very much. It was
Thanks
useful.
Thanks, Gaurav.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your time.
Sir,
Thanks for the
Bye-bye.
participants as well.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, somebody saying something, so then I can wrap up. All right, no question. Take care. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
thank you.